my God.
You're not Japanese?
See, Viv always has a pretty, what the hell, man? Ooh. Ready? Cheers.
Thank you so much for inviting us over to Rara Ramen, Scott and Katie. At the time that we're filming this, actually, it's your Rara birthday. So happy 5th birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah. Scott didn't realise, eh?
No, time flies and you're having fun, right?
What were you doing before Rara, and like what your background is as well?
I've been working in the television industry for about almost 20 years and love it. It's really dynamic, particularly working in live TV, and that's something that I still do today. And it's almost the same as running Rara Ramen.
I was also in TV prior, so I was in a different section in TV. I was in editing. Yeah, and prior to that, putting myself through film school, I did a lot of food. So there was that kind of lineage of working in food prior to TV. And then we had that crazy idea to open Rara, and I thought I probably wouldn't return to TV. That's probably not going to happen.
Well, it's been 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, addressing the elephant in the room, 2 non-Japanese people, you know, opening a bunch of Japanese restaurants. Was there any thoughts behind that? Was it just really about, like, you know, bringing the best ramen to Sydney?
You're not Japanese?
Maybe 1%.
There's always a fair bit of shock when people come in and they do say, well, there's certain quality. The owners must be, you know, from a certain background. But that's a nod to, I think, how good the food is and what the team produces every day. So we're pretty grateful when that mistake is sometimes made. It comes back to what we kind of felt. We like eating the style of ramen that wasn't prevalent in Sydney really, and the type of place where you could eat it. And from there, just investigating it, I certainly, when I was in Japan, fell in love with the craft. So I was calling Katie and going, okay, now we need to make our own noodles. Hang on, we need to make our own broth this way. It kind of snowballed.
And where did you spend time in Japan?
All over the shop, but the ramen masters I really worked with for a long period of time and then formed a relationship with. They came to Sydney, worked with us multiple times. Was in Oyama, so just north of Tokyo.
I think the great thing is it is surprising when people come into Rara, and certainly in the early days when Scott would be in the kitchen, they'd be like, well, where's the ramen chef? It's like, well, it's this guy. Mm-hmm. And I think as we've grown as well, definitely not just about Scott and I, it's about the whole team behind us. And that's a really incredibly diverse team. And I think when you have the love of a craft, it reflects in the food, it reflects in the atmosphere. We all love it.
The reason why Rara is so good is because you are aware of that, and then you've made sure that every single ingredient being added in, or like the broths and everything, are at 110% of a standard too, which is why the food tastes so good.
Thank you. Yeah.
I was going to say, it's funny because in the early days, people used to say, oh, where's the ramen chef? Where's he from in Japan? And I would point to Scott and say, he's from Brisbane. And people would laugh and go, it's from Brisbane? Yeah, Brisbane, Australia.
Sydney's got a lot of ramen stores and there's a big ramen scene here. What sets you apart from everyone else?
I guess it's just going back to that love of the craft and the ingredients. So obviously we focus on Kyushu style Tonkotsu. 5 years ago, particularly the Tonkotsu in Sydney was more that gelatinous kind of gravy-like, and that's, you know, people love that. You know, you've got the OG gum show that make great stuff, but my personal taste was more that Kyushu style, kind of creamy, lighter Tonkotsu. And then from that, making our own broths, the love of making noodles. I guess that's what sets us apart. And then also toppings as well.
And I think too, really focusing a lot of the business on vegan options and the vegetarian options as well was something that I think has really differentiated us.
I remember when I first visited Rara in Redfern, you guys had just opened, and you guys were the first place to do a creamy broth. Was it Python style ramen broth? So I think that really sets you guys apart, and you guys are really known for good quality noodles, good vegan options and vegetarian options that nowhere else kind of hits that standard for. It's always usually a second option.
Yeah, and look, that was my experience, not as a vegan, but I was vegetarian for many years in my younger years, and it was particularly an afterthought in a lot of restaurants. So I kind of had that appreciation of what you kind of want in a vegan or vegetarian meal. The vegan stuff came about by accident, really, the first time.
I think the first vegan ramen we put, it might have only been the third or the fourth dish that we put on. So it was right up there very, very early on. And it was kind of Scott's commitment. It should be just as satisfying and fulfilling to have a vegan or vegetarian option than to have like a classic tonkotsu. You shouldn't feel like you're missing out on the richness and the experience of of people coming and dining and co-dining together, that one person might be a huge fan of pork, one person might be vegan. Neither of you are compromising on the experience.
And look, it's fun to innovate. I think that's what we try to do across all our menu items is innovate. And I think vegan food, particularly ramen, can be quite challenging to do and do it well. So that's always fun to kind of nail that when we can.
What would you say makes a ramen good?
Hell, we've only got 10 minutes.
We've only got 5 minutes, guys.
Well, no, I think it's just that kind of that love for the ingredients. I think you generally can see a good ramen from how it looks, the quality of the noodles, the balance essentially. So there's 5 key elements of a ramen, and that's your noodles, your broth, your tare, your toppings, and your oil, fragrant oil. If you pay attention to all 5 of those things, it's going to be a good ramen. It should be a good ramen.
And I think so it's the moment at which you experience that ramen as well. So you might have an absolute perfect ramen, but if you're sitting somewhere that you don't feel comfortable or it's not the right environment, I think that then elevates. And that's what we've always tried to do, is offer the best ramen you can find in a space that feels really inviting and, you know, has great music and good lighting, and you can get the kind of drink that you want, and you can either have a date or hang out with mates or bring your family, and everyone's going to have a great time.
Something unique that's here at Randwick, Noodle Room. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's not something that you see all the time, especially not in Sydney.
I do remember one of the little tiny ramen joints that Scott and I went to very early on in Tokyo, I think it was, in the Kapabashi district.
Yeah.
And we walked in and it was so tiny, it would be half as big as this space here even. And the ramen chef was in there, the master was in there stirring his broth for what would be the next day's broth. And he had a little tiny room that would have been no bigger than sort of the end of this table, with a noodle machine and bags of flour. And you could see that sometime during the day he'd sat down and made those noodles, and he would do the same thing again tomorrow and the same thing the next day while something else was happening. And I think we were really excited to capture that, the quality of the work that goes into making a ramen. It's not a steak on a fry. There's a whole bunch of dishes that get served that are made that day, which are incredible, but ramen takes 24 hours to make. And to know that you can come in and look through that glass and see our amazing ramen noodle master in there, I am making noodles that will be served tomorrow or the next day, you kind of think that's an insight into the craft of what we do. We didn't want to hide that part because it's fascinating.
It's also the sense of theatre. I think when you go and see ramen being made, particularly in Japan, right? You see the chefs open kitchens, noodle rooms like that, and then it's a nod to provenance of our ingredients. So you can see it all happening in one space. Yeah,
I'm really excited to try it. So yeah, you show us in the kitchen now. It's going to be made now.
Right.
Yeah. We kind of collaborate, the team collaborates. Some of this has also been passed from the ramen masters I've worked with in the past. Gyoza, who I trained with back in Japan, actually taught us this maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We've held on to it and we haven't launched it, going through COVID, etc. But now we come through that, we want to bring this one out. But the innovations, it can come from just coming up with some crazy ideas over a glass of wine or being in the kitchen and throwing things together. This particular one, the Latte Ramen, was taught to us by Gyoza-san.
This is a very wide variety of different ramens as well. And you were telling me off camera, if you don't mind, just the story again, because you decided to start, a ramen stall. But what was the actual sort of sequence of events?
We were quite fortunate, talking about that provenance and that craft, be able to learn that properly was just some kind of, we were lucky to be in a small bar in Tokyo many years ago and having a chat together. And a bloke, 12 seats over said, "Are you Australian?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, we're moving to Sydney in a couple of weeks." And we exchanged details. And long story short, we became good friends. Then we had this crazy idea about the ramen bar. And he mentioned at the time that his mum's best friend from university is the biggest noodle manufacturer on the West of Japan. And he could put us in touch with all these ramen masters in Japan. So what ended up happening was Gyoza, who we met in the bar, and me went through Japan and had this insight that normally you wouldn't get. So we're quite fortunate. That journey, met some really good ramen masters that kind of gave us even more knowledge and insight, and we've worked with over the years.
Do you still have that relationship with some of them to this day?
Yeah, I still keep in touch with Gyoza-san and Hyoda-san. We would actually fly them over, pre-COVID, and we hope to get them back at some stage to celebrate, 5 years and all the hard work we just put in.
So yours has become kind of through this chance encounter in a tiny bar has become a really big part of how we started Rara, and he's, you know, incredibly successful in Japan and other parts of Asia with his coffee brand. So kind of the relationship with coffee and ramen, particularly in Japan, is not unusual. It's kind of up there, I suppose, with, you know, beer and ramen, and if you like the one, it's often that you like the other because of the complexity of flavour. I think that's what surprised me when I had that dish, is like, it feels like a hint of coffee, and it's just adding this beautiful complexity and layered to what would otherwise just be a great dish anyway.
So Scott, do you want to just introduce each of the dishes to us?
Yeah, so this is one of the OGs. It's the Tonkotsu black garlic and chili. So obviously one of our specialties is Tonkotsu. We've got our house-made char siu that's also fairly unique to Rara, which we grill over coals for serving. And then we've got one of these newer dishes that we're bringing out for the birthday celebrations, which is our plant-based miso, but it's a spicy plant-based miso with impossible meat. And then over here, we've got this little curveball of a dish marrying espresso with ramen. So it's our Latte Ramen. And that's a chicken broth. And then you've got your subi.
I like the touch of the coffee beans, yeah, just to make sure you know what it is.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that, obviously, it's simplicity in toppings, so we don't want to overpower the broth. You want to be able to taste that kind of infusion of the coffee through.
I'm really excited to try it. So yeah, you ready to dig in?
Yeah, let's eat.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh.
So we're going to start off with the plant-based one. This one is the spicy miso tantanmen. I'm going to try the broth first.
Yeah, well, I was going to say this one, you cannot even tell that it's plant-based.
And look at the mix.
Yeah. It looks really meaty, doesn't it? Yeah. All right, you go first. I'm going to try the broths.
It's so good. It's so creamy as well. And there's actually depth in the flavor.
Yeah. Wow.
Like usually when you go to like a ramen place and you get a vegan option, it's always an afterthought, and you're like, oh, okay, it's all right. But this is like not bad.
Have you tried this yet?
I've tried it before.
You tried it before?
You go.
Okay. This literally, yeah, the mouthfeel, because I was saying the mouthfeel of it doesn't taste like a meat alternative, you know? Usually there's sort of like a spongy aspect to it. You can taste kind of like gluteny, but this really doesn't. And I'm sure when you mix it together and you try it together, it literally won't taste like anything other than just a regular ramen. Yeah, this is amazing.
Get the perfect bite.
So what else is in here? Is bamboo shoots, spring onions, yep. And then obviously bean sprouts. Yeah, like a whole dried chili in it. Are you ready? Oh, that's a big bite.
YOLO.
Great. Ready?
Cheers. Oh.
That's so good. That's amazing. There's got a bit of kick to it as well. No? So this one here is the new coffee-based Latte Ramen, right? And you can see obviously the 3 coffee beans there as well. So
the noodles are different, right? Oh.
So all noodles are in-house, and then they're egg fresh, right? So last time.
This piece of chicken, how perfect it is as well. And I go, noodles. I'm literally gonna put a whole piece of chicken on top. Cheers. Man, that's a pretty, look at mine. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.
This broth.
Whoa. I got the coffee there.
It's literally like, yeah, it's like drinking coffee and ramen at the same time.
It's like you get the savory bites,
It's got that roasted flavor.
and then at the end it's like a slight coffee aftertaste, like a milky coffee aftertaste.
Oh, this is good.
Okay.
All right, last
Next
one. So first thing I want to show is this tasu, how crazy that looks, right? And
It's also made in-house.
Right. And also the egg. Oh, the egg is, you know, not to be underestimated as well. That's a perfect egg right there. And then of course the noodles. So this one needs to be mixed because of the black garlic. Then a noodle pool, and I'll just mix it up a little bit.
Oh, you can see how the soup just like coats all of the noodles so evenly.
Oh, it smells good. I am a pork guy, I am a tonkotsu guy, so I'm very excited about this one.
Cheers.
See, Vin always has a pretty. What the hell, man? Seriously, look at this. Ready?
Yep. And
Oh my god. Oh my god.
whoa.
Oh my god. Can I just slip out of this?
Woo. It's the oily black garlic that has, again, depth, right? It's like, I don't know how to describe that.
Oh, this is amazing. And I'm gonna try the char siu as well.
It's so good, man.
Yeah, look at that. All right, fatty.
Uh-huh.
Oh man. This is hangover food. Viv, considering you are you mainly don't eat meat. What's your weight?
Oh, this is still a little bit gamey for me, but I think if I got used to it, I would really like this. I still love the miso here. Like it's a big winner for me, as well as their soy shio on the menu.
Soy shio as well.
I think just overall, if you're going for something that's still creamy, deep in flavor, and you'll still feel kind of light afterwards, I think the vegan miso and the soy shio does really well. But if I were to go for like food, I go with this one.
Yeah.
And the pork.
This tonkotsu one is like, yeah, literally, if you're like, you're not in the mood for anything other than to put your head down, everyone off around you, and just put your head down and like eat. But this coffee one is insane. I have no preconception or expectations about what this flavor was supposed to be, and it was like unreal. Yeah. And actually, the egg, which we've got a whole egg here,
Oh yeah.
has got the Rara Ramen logo. Wow, look at that.
So orange.
Yeah. And of course that, you know, when you have that with the ramen itself and the broth, perfect.
Hits different.
It does hit different. Amazing.
Rara is where it's at. So many options.
Yep. And then of course all the locations, we've got here at Randwick, got Redfern, we've got
South
Everleigh as well, and then obviously Burleigh Heads if you're up in Queensland as well. So
South Everleigh actually focuses on just
Sukumen,
Sukumen, yeah.
which is a dipping, a different type of obviously noodles as well. So I think first of its kind in Sydney, you say, specializes and focuses on it. Yep. But yeah, if you guys are in the area, or even if you just don't mind traveling out, just check it out, definitely. Yep.
Sweet.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks. See you next time.